with the news-making headlines around the world. In a special session, the National Assembly accepts resignation requests from 5 MPs. Friends of Syria meet in London to discuss new ways of supporting the Syrian opposition. Trade unions in Turkey hold a one-day strike in protest at the country's worst mine disaster. And Ukraine's political and civil leaders hold the first round of talks to end the crisis in the country. In our first item, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency President of the Republic of Paraguay, Horatio Cartes, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah sent a cable of congratulations to His Excellency President of the Republic of Paraguay, Horatio Cartes, on the occasion of his country's National Day. And His Highness Sheikh Jabal Mubarak Al-Hamad Al-Sabah, the Prime Minister, also sent a similar cable. His Highness Sheikh Dr. Sultan bin Mohammed Al-Qasimi, member of the Supreme Council, the ruler of Al-Sharjah, received at his office this afternoon the representative of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, His Excellency Minister of the Emiri Diwan Affairs Sheikh Nasser Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Sabah. The representative of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, His Excellency the Minister of the Emiri Diwan Affairs Sheikh Nasser Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Sabah, arrived in the United Arab Emirates today to represent His Highness the Emir in the ceremony of the Arab Family Organization and the selection of His Highness the Emir as the winner of the first award of the Arab world for humanitarian support and social coherence. His Excellency was received upon arrival by His Highness Sheikh Dr. Sultan bin Mohammed Al-Qasimi, member of the UAE Supreme Council and ruler of Al-Sharjah. The National Assembly approved in its special session today the resignation submitted by 5 of its members, namely Riyad Al-Atsani, Dr. Abdul Karim Al-Kandari, Dr. Hussein Al-Quyan, Ali Al-Rashid and Safa Al-Hashim. The House also asked this bureau to draft replies to the letters of resignation submitted by those members. On the other hand, the National Assembly Speaker Mazoug Ali Al-Ghanem declared their seats as vacant. The vacant seats are 2 in the 2nd constituency, 2 in the 3rd constituency and 1 in the 4th constituency. Mr. Al-Ghanem reviewed the efforts made by him and other House members to make the resigning deputies change their mind, but to no avail. The Deputy Premier and Minister of Defense, Sheikh Khalid Al-Jarrah Al-Sabah, met today with the First Deputy of the U.S. Defense Secretary Assistant for Cyber Policy, Mr. Eric Rosenbach, and his accompanying delegation on the occasion of his visit to the country. They discussed a number of subjects of interest to both parties, especially those related to military. The meeting was attended by Assistant of the Army Chief of Staff for Operations and Planning, Major General Badr Al-Mzain, and Commander of the Electronic War Command, Colonel Nasser Al-Sbai. The Deputy Premier and Minister of Defense also met with the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China in the State of Kuwait, Sui Giban Chan, where they discussed issues of mutual interest. The meeting was attended by the Assistant to the Army Chief of Staff for Operations and Planning, Major General Badr Al-Mzain. Foreign ministers from Arab and Western nations, including U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, met today to discuss new ways of supporting the Syrian opposition. The Friends of Syria group gathered in London just days after UN Arab League peace envoy Lakhdar al-Ibrahimi stepped down after almost 2 years of fruitless efforts to end the war. A UK Foreign Office spokesman said it was the right time for countries who supported democratic rule for Syria to come together. In other developments, activists said a number of people were killed by an explosion near the border between Syria and Turkey. A car filled with explosives was reportedly blown up in the northern province of Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that 17 people were killed, while a Turkish news agency said tens of people were also injured. Palestinians rallied in the Gaza Strip today to commemorate the Nakba Day, which marks the dispersal of some 700,000 Palestinians from their homes by Israeli occupying forces. Majd al-Wahidi has more details in the following report from Gaza.
Hundreds of Palestinians rallied in the Gaza Strip to mark the 66th anniversary of Nakba Day. Nakba, or the catastrophe, refers to ethnic cleansing of Palestine when hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were dispossessed by Zionists in 1948 and were displaced in the Middle East and other countries.
الشعب الفلسطيني يؤكد إصراره على التمسك.
Palestinians confirm their determination on the right to return to their homes in accordance with international law and UN General Assembly Resolution 194.
While Israelis celebrate their victory in the so-called War of Independence, Palestinians mark Nakba, the greatest catastrophe in Palestinian history. Despite all of this, Palestinians still hang on their dream to return to their homeland. Each year, in the 15th of May, Palestinians commemorate Nakba Day. Intifada Youth Coalition organized a mass demonstration. Tens of Palestinian activists marched toward Nahl al-Aouz Israeli border. There were fears of clashes with Israeli soldiers as they were centralized on the border.
We came today to say that those who say the old will die and the young will forget are totally wrong. We grow up and the dream of returning to our homes grow with us. Our grandmothers told us the story of Nakba. One day we will return to Haifa, Jaffa and Akka. Today we say that the right of return will not be forgotten and cannot be compromised on because it's a sacred right.
The 2014 anniversary falls while the main Palestinian parties, Fatah and Hamas, work hard to form a Palestinian unity government. During a press conference held yesterday, President Mahmoud Abbas said the program of the new national government will avoid the imposition of economic sanctions, provide the requirements of resilience, and put an end to the blockade of Gaza. In a new move, Gaza security forces on Wednesday began leaving President Mahmoud Abbas' house in Gaza City. Witnesses said the evacuation came in light of the recent national reconciliation deal between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. Majd al-Wahidi, KTV2, Gaza.
A car bomb and a suicide bomber struck today in a bustling area of downtown Baghdad nearby a security office, killing at least 9 people and wounding 19. The blast, which occurred in Baghdad's Karada neighborhood, came 2 days after militants unleashed a wave of car bombings in Iraq, which killed at least 34. The attacks came 2 weeks after Iraqis cast ballots in the country's first parliamentary election since the U.S. military withdrawal in 2011. No preliminary results have been announced, deepening a sense of uncertainty in a country which has witnessed a resurgence of violence recently. Trade unions in Turkey held a one-day strike in protest at the country's worst ever mine disaster in Soma, which claimed at least 282 lives. Thousands took to the streets for a second day in cities across the country as clashes broke out in Izmir. President Abdullah Gül had been visiting the scenes of the disaster as Turkey begins 3 days of mourning, while Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan received criticism from protesters during his visit to Soma. It was a second day of protest after police clashed with crowds on Wednesday. Police fired tear gas and water cannon on some 20,000 people who took to the streets in Izmir, Turkey's third largest city. Afghanistan's election commission announced today that the country's presidential election was going into a second round, with the top 2 contenders set to face off on June the 14th. A tight race is now expected between former Foreign Minister Abdullah Abdullah and ex-Finance Minister Ashraf Ghani Ahmadzai. The Independent Election Commission's chairman told a news conference in Kabul that Abdullah garnered 45% of votes in the first round, while Ahmadzai came in second with 31.6%. He added that the final results were almost exactly the same as the preliminary results released late last month. Ukraine's political and civil leaders held a first round of talks to end the crisis in the country but separatists were not represented. Correspondents said talks were heated, although there was a consensus that Ukraine must remain a united state. The interim president said Kiev was prepared to listen to rebels, but said they must lay down their arms first. Separately, Russian and Ukrainian diplomats confirmed today that the next round of national dialogue talks on the future of Ukraine would take place in Donetsk, possibly over the coming weekend. Earlier, the interim president said the Ukrainian army destroyed 2 military bases of pro-Russian insurgents in overnight operations. 3 people were killed and more than 20 others injured in a deadly attack today on an anti-government protest camp in Bangkok's democracy movement. The protesters have been pressing the Senate to replace the cabinet with an appointed administration. Thailand's military chief warned that the army could use force if political violence continues. A certified workshop course started at Kuwait University on modification and improvement of behavior for both adults and children, presented by trainer Dr. Nabil Al-Gharib, who is a member of the Educational Foundation Department at the university. Behavior is affected by various dimensions. Therefore, some people need assistance in order to increase positive performance in everyday life, contacts and issues. Here is more on the event in this report with Salim Al-Kendari.
Dr. Nabil Al-Gharib, a certified trainer, presented a coursework at Kuwait University on how to alter and change behavior and attitude into positive performance.
This workshop training is about behavior modification, how people can change their behavior, whether positive, to increase the positive behavior, and if it's negative, how to reduce the negative behavior. We use different techniques based on psychological schools in how to deal with the behavior in the daily basis. There is many ways to deal with the children. First, we have to know what kind of behavior that children behave, whether positive or negative. But mainly we focus on negative behavior, how to reduce this negative behavior. So we have to know what the age of the children. Are they children or are they in the older age? We have to know also what is the social condition that all those children come across, whether they have positive environment, social environment, or negative. Also, what is the time that this behavior appear, in the morning or in the night, and based on those dimensions we can deal with the behavior of the children.
Behavior modification is a treatment approach based on the principles of operant conditioning that replaces undesirable behaviors with more desirable ones through positive or negative reinforcement. One way of giving positive reinforcement in behavior modification is in providing compliance, approval, encouragement, and affirmation. A ratio of complaints for every one complaint is generally seen as being effective in altering behavior in a desired manner. This workshop teaches participants how to modify their behavior and turn negative attitudes into a positive one. From Kuwait University, this is Salim Al-Kendari reporting for the English News.
And in local business news, Stock Exchange ended its trading today on a mixed board. The weight index came to 492.04 points. That's a drop of 3 points. The price index came to 7,403.74. That's a gain of 8.45 points, while the KSX 15 ended the day at 1,194.61. That's a drop of 14.91 points. Trades altogether came to 5,324 transactions worth about 25 million Kuwaiti dinars, with around 420 million shares changing hands. And in our final item tonight, a 3-day conference aimed at spreading medical awareness on the safe usage of medicine and drugs kicked off in Kuwait. Heba Abdurrahman was there with this report.
Under the patronage of Minister of Justice, Awqaf and Islamic Affairs, the third Gulf Conference on the halal industry and its services kicked off. The event was attended by a constellation of scholars, thinkers, and specialists. The event also focused on the developments in the halal industry and to review halal-related affairs from an Islamic legal and health perspective. The event was intended to conduct a foundational and Islamic legal review of the fundamental principles, legal canons, and edicts related to the halal industry, cope with developments in the halal industry, and promote investment in its sector. The ministry hoped that this conference would come up with concrete recommendations that could contribute to setting out halal industry controls and rules and to spurring the finding of alternatives to the non-halal services. From the Sheraton Hotel, this is Heba Abdulrahman reporting for English News.
For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. Well, with that, we conclude our news bulletin. Thank you for joining us. Have a pleasant time. I'm Maham Tawa. Before we go, we remind you once again of our main top stories. Have a pleasant time and good night. In a special session, the National Assembly accepts the resignation request from 5 MPs. Friends of Syria meet in London to discuss new ways of supporting the Syrian opposition. And trade unions in Turkey hold a one-day strike in protest at the country's worst mine disaster.